Mic check. Okay. Get this out of the way. Awesome. Welcome and thank you for joining. My name is Anthony, and today we are going to try to figure out how to deploy a mobile app. I'm thinking today just spending an hour, maybe an hour and a half, looking at React Native and going through the documentation. If we can get our environment set up by the end of this stream, that would be a huge win. Yeah, so let's just get to it. So I'm pretty familiar with React, using it professionally for work right now. So hopefully React Native has pretty similar syntax. The thing I'm worried about is just setting up the environment and seeing what libraries and frameworks are available out there. Kind of worried about picking the right choice, but yeah, let's just dig right into the documentation. Okay, React Native lets you write apps for Android and iOS with one code base. You can include React Native into existing Android and iOS projects or create a whole new app from scratch. Yeah, so I have no experience building even hobby projects on Android or iOS. It's written in JavaScript. And here's some code snippets. So yeah, it looks exactly like regular React. Native deployment for everyone. So I know with other frameworks, they kind of just render, I think Cordova, the other one, Cordova. Yeah, I think Cordova lets you write HTML and JavaScript, deploy it as a native application, but they're just web views from what I know. Seamless, cross-platform, fast refresh. And here are the companies using React Native. Okay, so we will be in good company. Oh, okay. So let's follow these get started steps. Okay, the terminal is opening up. What do we got here? Okay, so let's run npx React Native. So that's some type of CLI script. It's going to call init and then create a new test project. Let's just follow along. Okay, while that is running, let's load up the tutorial. Already familiar with React, you can skip that section, read it for a light refresher. The above is a snack player. Interesting. Okay. Okay, so it looks like they have the hooks API. Okay, the install is still going. Yeah, so let's just keep looking through this. Open source framework using React and the app platform's native capabilities. We'll use JavaScript. A view is the basic building block of UI, a small rectangular element on the screen which can be used to display text, images, respond to user input. Even the smallest visual elements of an app are kinds of views. Some kinds of views can contain other views. It's views all the way down. Yeah, so I have a pretty good mental model of React on the web. I'm just trying to compare. So with the web, there's names for all of these. They call it building blocks of UI, which is just HTML. But now that they React Native, it's dealing with both Android and iOS. I assume they have different terminology for different elements. So they're coming up with overarching terms. This is an image view. But yeah, iOS here. UI image view. I assume this is Android. It's just called the image view. I have no idea. Let's just keep going. Android development, you write views in Kotlin and Java. iOS, it's Swift or Objective-C. At runtime, React Native creates the corresponding Android and iOS views for these components. Because React Native components are backed by the same views as Android and iOS, native apps look, feel, and perform like any other apps. They call them native components. React Native lets you build your own native components for Android and iOS to suit your app's unique needs. Okay. Okay, core components. Yeah, so this, in terms of like React on the web, would just be the HTML elements, or web components as well. Okay, let's see. Oh yeah, they have a nice web analog here. So view is just a div, text is a p, image, scroll view. Okay, so there's a difference between scroll view and view, and then we have text input. Text input, you can type in the, can I? Interesting. So I wonder if I can literally just jump in here and just create something. Counter. So I'm just going to create a okay, I don't know how to do button presses yet. Let's see, on change. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, so I was just able to use React useState. I just guessed what the event handler was for this text input. Did you see that every time I change this text input, it increments this guy over here. Nice. Because React Native uses the same API structure as React Components, you'll need to understand React Component APIs to get started. I always like a refresher. Let's take a look. Wow, it's still going, which is yeah. So components, JSX, props, states. So it's teaching you how to write functional components. Here we have the text inputs. Teaching us how to use JSX and how to use variables inside JSX. And you can use any expression inside of curly braces. You can nest elements together. Here we can reuse this cat component multiple times. Talks about parent components and child components. Talks about props, which are arguments you can pass into components. Image tag. This part is kind of interesting. I wonder why the source is an object. What other options does it take? Let's see. We have a source, several remote URLs specified together with their width and height, potentially with scale, measured size. Width, height. Okay. Interesting. Image has many different props, including style. Here we talked about the state. Okay, good to know there's a button component, and it takes an on-press handler rather than a on-click. Yeah, so this we used the useState hook. Okay. Yeah, that was a nice refresher. So let's see. Next up, core components and APIs. It has an on-change text prop. That's not what I used before. It's kind of interesting. So what if I do this? So just change it from on-change text to on-change text split is not a function. Okay, so it doesn't like that. Huh. I'm just going to the last example that I played with. Text input. This is a text input on change. I'm pretty sure I did on change here, but that's fine. Let's ignore it for now. On change text it is. We store text in the state because it changes over time. You could validate text, control components, learn how to handle touches. Not really sure how this tutorial is set up. Handling touches seems to be a logical next step for the tutorial, but then it's going into using a scroll view. Okay, scroll view is a generic scrolling container that can contain multiple components and views. The scrollable items don't have to be the same. You can scroll both vertically and horizontally by setting the horizontal property. If I change this to view, what happens? View is not defined, so let's import that in. Still scrollable. So it's scrollable on the web side. Let's see if it's scrollable here. So yeah, I just can't tell if it's my computer being slow. But let's put the scroll view back in and try scrolling again on the iOS simulator over here. Okay. Okay, so this does scroll. And if I turn it off, let's try it again. So I changed scroll view to view, and I'm going to try scrolling. No scroll. Okay. Scroll views can be configured to allow paging through views using swiping gestures. On iOS, a scroll view with a single item can be used to allow the user to zoom content. Scroll view works best to present a small amount of things of a limited size. All the elements and views of a scroll view are rendered, even if they are not shown on screen. Flat list. Okay. Learn more about list views next. React Native provides a suite of components for presenting lists of data. We want either a flat list or a section list. Flat list displays a scrolling list of changing but similarly structured data. Works well for long lists. The number of items might change over time. It only renders elements that are currently showing on the screen, not all the elements at once. Okay. So this looks like some of the windowing libraries in the React web world, which pretty much copies the techniques from the iOS world, or so I remember. Okay, so we have, interesting, there's a style sheet. Here's some data over here. Key. Okay. If you want to render a set of data broken into logical sections, and then a section list is the way to go. Okay, and here data is just broken out into a two-dimensional array. Okay. Yeah, the documentations are just a little wonky. They're not. You're saying let's learn about networking in React Native, and the next is going to troubleshooting. Yeah, I don't think we'll run into this part yet. Let's get handling touches, and maybe we'll see if we should fix these docks. Users interact with mobile apps mainly through touch. CocoaPods. Let me just wait for this Wacom thing to disappear. Okay, so what do we have? CocoaPods is not installed. Take a look at CocoaPods. Dependency Manager for Swift and Objective-C projects. Okay. So let us download that Homebrew. Keep looking at the docs. Gestures such as tapping on a button, scrolling a list, zooming on a map, handles all sorts of gestures, as well as a comprehensive gesture responder system. That sounds really interesting. So React Native provides a basic button with an on press. You can select which platform. Android. Nice, nice. So there's some type of alert. If the basic button doesn't look right, you can build your own button using any of the touchable components. Looks like a building block that handles touch events. There's no default styling. There's something called on long touch. Long press. I'm curious if a normal button has this. So we're going to call alerts. You pressed me a long time. Okay. Tap to play. So we're going to do a long press on the button that says this looks great. Let's see what happens. Tap the button. But I want a long press. Nope. Okay, let's look at this guy. Touchable. Long press. Tap the button. on long press. Yeah, I was just trying to get this on long press thing to work. Okay, so I'm holding onto the button. There we go. So on long press seems to only work with the touchable component. Got it. Navigating between scenes. I think this I want to read next. The gesture responder system manages the life cycle of gestures in your app. It needs to determine if the touch is scrolling, sliding on a widget, or tapping. This can even change during the duration of a touch. Yeah, there isn't. Trying to find a comparison for this in the web world. This seems a little more intricate. This responder system. Maybe it's sort of like events that bubble up. The view can become the touch responder by implementing the correct negotiation methods. There are two methods to ask the view if it wants to become responder. Okay. Yeah, this is... Okay. Yeah, this is kind of where React events for the web start. Like we just get that event object. The browser tells us if the user is double clicking, it tells us if they're moving their mouse, and all this upstream stuff, it's hidden away. Okay. Yeah, just gonna quickly breeze over this. Bubbling patterns. Yeah. Navigating between screens. Okay. You're starting. Probably want to use React navigation. So Expo is a framework built on top of React Native. It looks like it was really easy to set up the project and deploy. The downside is, I read it's just bloated because there's so much framework code in there. So might want to take that into consideration on this project. I think I care more about being productive rather than performance at this point. Just want to build something cool. Okay, so to have different screens, we need this navigation container wrapping our entire app. Yeah, so there's no concept of URLs. There's no concept of URLs in the mobile world. So the navigation is just based on stacks. User clicked on like a home button, and then so it works sort of like a URL, but the user seems more like a stack. Not that URLs aren't like stacks. The user can still navigate back and forward in the address, but the user could also just supply their own URL and go out of the stack. With this, I wonder if there's a concept of just navigating to a completely different stack. I'll press navigate to profile. I'm just going to take a little water break. Be right back. Okay, so reading about navigation. So we have two screens. We have a home and a profile. Each screen takes a component prop. These components receive a prop called navigation, which has various methods to link to other screens. I'll press navigation, navigate to profile, and the second argument is inside the route params. Okay, that's React navigation getting started. Also want to look at the networking. Okay. Need to fetch a chunk of static content from another server. Uses the fetch API for networking needs. That's interesting. Yeah, is that same fetch from the web API? It returns a promise. You have to do .json on it. Yeah, it's the exact same thing. Can use async await. Supports WebSockets. Duplex communication. What does that mean? What is duplex? I can communicate with one another in both directions. Okay, yeah, with WebSockets, the server can talk to the client can talk to the server. Whereas with traditional REST API calls, the server can only respond to a request from the client. So I think that's what duplex means. Cool. Tone issues. Okay, keep note of that. React navigation, setting this up. Navigate between screens. So one thing I am curious about with mobile apps, sometimes they send you notifications. How does React Native handle that? What is this called, notifications? Okay. Okay, how do you send push notifications from React Native? Similar to SMS, but don't cost anything to send. Okay. Architecture on React Native. Okay, so 3 ways to set up push notifications. So Expo was the framework that I was looking for, that I was looking at. before, and it looks like they have their own service for push notifications. There's also Firebase. Works for free, which makes me wonder if Expo has a paid service to use their framework. I know it's open source. Okay, let's see. Register app to get a push notification token. So we ask the user, can we send you notifications? Send push notifications to the server. Okay, so it's nice to know that it's doable. Receive notifications. Okay, so here on the app, it listens for notifications that are sent. Oh, is it saying that send notifications on the server? Test notifications. Okay. Yeah, so something in your server could be a cron job or whatnot that schedules push notifications. But it will call something like chunk push notifications. How do we know what users it's going to send it to? Okay. It's just nice to know that it is a thing we can do. Yes, I feel pretty confident with the docs with React Native. I get the high-level ideas, so let's us. Okay, so let's check that off the list. Here. And let's try to get our environment set up. Oof. Okay, so it failed while installing Cocoa Pods. Yeah, so this is what I'm wondering if I should just use Expo. Let's look for React Native Expo. So I knew Expo was for React Native. I didn't realize it also does React Web. Interesting. Iterate. Okay, so let's try this out. So let's delete what we installed before with the React Native CLI, and we're going to use Expo. So we're installing the Expo CLI. I think if we could have some type of Hello World project set up with a couple of different screens, maybe making an API call, that would be a success. That's installing. Once that's installed, we're going to create a new project. React Native project. Okay. There are two tools we need. Expo CLI, that's installing. Go allows you to open up apps. Here, let's make it easier. iOS simulator. Yeah, so it looks like we could download an app onto our phone. I have an iPhone, and then you could see all your changes on your device, which is really cool. I think for this stream, I will have to set this up just so we could see the project on my screen. Okay, install Xcode, check. Install Xcode command line tools. Okay, let's not have too many things running at once. Create a new app. Metro bundler. Open the app on your phone. So we scan QR code. Okay. Yeah, while that's installing, let's take a look through the documentation. Enters a Boolean input. We have some buttons, lists. We have wrappers for Android classes, wrappers for iOS. So this is kind of interesting. I wonder what the common paradigm is for using these components. Are there just if statements that check, is this Android, then render this, otherwise render that. Or there might be some type of file system where you could specify, like I have a component, mybutton.android.js. I think I might have seen that somewhere. Feature preview. Yes, build. Yes, priority plan. Yikes. How much do you cost? Free. Okay, $29 a month. Do you like this part? Distribute your apps to testers. Coming soon. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I just don't know how hard it is to do deployments. And if the service is worth it. Still going. Look at React Native publishing. So, yeah, this part is a little confusing just because here it's showing this looks like Xcode. But how do I get React Native into Xcode? Maybe I should have just stuck with the React Native CLI and the template they made. Yeah, I should have just deleted that. That was kind of dumb. Yeah, so it's still going. So I think I will set up my environment offline. I'll install the template with, oh, wow, 695 seconds. Let's see how long this takes. So I'm running Expo and Knit to create a new project with the Expo framework. Oof, that was that bad. A minimal app as clean as an empty canvas. Just the essentials to get you started. Yeah, let's try it. Yarn. So offline, I think I will dig into what a bare bones React Native environment gives me, and see what value that Expo brings. Here is, yeah. So I think when you're on Android, this file gets picked up. If you're on iOS, this file gets picked up. And body.js applies to both platforms. Yeah, so this just looks like it's not using Expo. Maybe I should have just stuck with it. Okay. So I'm gonna do what I did at the beginning of the stream and just use React Native CLI to create a template, a basic project. I just want to see what comes in a basic project and what Expo brings to the table. And this might be a good stopping point. Just waiting for things to install. So hopefully tomorrow I'll have these two projects downloaded. I'll also follow through the instructions to set up. I think I could do this tomorrow. And then hopefully we could build a simple to-do app with navigation screens and an API call. But that is it for today. Thank you for joining, and happy coding.